So Srikuma sir, Nibu and I, we used to work together on one of our gamification project. I think it was 2 years back, right? 1.5 to 2 years back, Nibu.
Yes.
While you were in
Yeah,
IIT
1.5
Chennai.
years back.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I think 2 years ago, so he attended one of my sessions. That's why we are.
Okay. So Nibu, now we and Manu sir, we are working together on another.
Oh, super. Oh, great. Okay.
It's a very, very small world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah.
So we'll start. The power issue has been solved. There was a slight delay, and sorry for that. And we'll start away straight. So a warm welcome to all the participants from India and from different countries, UK, Afghanistan, and other places. So we are indeed glad to have such a diversified set of experts with rich experience in gamification to present their views on the topic learning through games, art and science of serious games. So when it comes to games, the memory I have of playing the first games was the Road Rash. And Road Rash was something very popular when in 1995 we purchased the first PC. And of course, the thrill of using that was still remains with me, because the beauty I noticed about it is that you can kick someone, which on the road when somebody misbehaves, we feel like kicking, but we can't do it. But on the game, you can always do it. And of course, sometimes the police comes and busts you up, and the game is busted. So, and also there is something called Dangerous Dave. But of course, it didn't go to an addiction level. But when my son was born, he was used to seeing all this and started learning at a very young age, like 2 or 3 years, he started playing such games. So the present generation, the digital natives, they are used to this kind of games. So why keep them away from this? Even I enjoyed a lot of these small games which I played when I bought my first PC. So that shows that games have some inherent ability to attract us to something, so that whole exercise, and then that gives us an opportunity to make it good for the education sector also. So we have so many examples now of gamification being used in industry. We have it used in various other, even in the medical sector, healthcare. So we would like to the intention of this event is to find out how this can be beneficially be used. But at the same time, we are always seeing news reports every day about how this mobile gaming is becoming a kind of addiction. And that is causing a lot of problems, so many negative reports. And naturally, the newspapers always look for negative reports to be highlighted. So we as well, at this point of time, we don't know how beneficial this can be. So that is one aspect that we'll be trying to explore in this 2-hour session. And I'm grateful that there's a very diversified audience today. And we'll go into each topic that we have identified in the program schedule. But I will introduce each speaker as we go by, instead of introducing all of them in the beginning itself. And to kickstart this, I have already kickstarted this gaming discussion. So to raise the throttle, we have somebody like Manu Melwin Joy. He's a gamification evangelist. That is what I would like to call. More than a teacher, I think he's now become a gamification evangelist. And he's all over the place on YouTube, wherever you go, on Instagram and everywhere he's there. And he has been very active in the past 3 years, I'm very sure. So I would like him to kickstart the discussion and kickstarting, not raise the throttle, so that we can take this discussion forward one by one. So I invite Dr. Manu Melwin Joy of Cochin University of Science and Technology, Asst Professor, to start off the proceedings. Okay, over to Manu.
Manu, you are muted.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Mr. Srikumar, for that generous introduction. So So given the small time allotted to me, I would like to stress in the point why gamification, why we have to consider gamification as a topic of discussion. So I would like to share two stories to drive in the point why gamification. The first story is about a 10-year-old boy named Griffin Sanders. He, in 2015, along with his 4-year-old brother and 74-year-old great-grandmother, went out for a drive in the suburbs of Denver, United States. His great-grandmother was driving. When the car was moving at 100 kilometers per hour, suddenly his great-grandmother had a heart attack and became unconscious. Just imagine a 10-year-old boy in the midst of a crisis. The car is moving at 100 kilometers per hour and there is nobody in charge of the steering. What he would have done? If I was in his place, I would have screamed, I would have been panicked. But he did exactly any perfectly normal 10-year-old kid would have done. He took control over the car, took control of the steering, executed a maneuver, taking the car to the side of the road, saving his life, life of his brother, and other drivers. When the police force came, they asked Griffin, "How in the world could you do it?" With a smile, Griffin replied, "Mario Kart." Mario Kart is a game in which you come across all the problems that you may face on road. And Griffin knew exactly what to do at that particular point of time. And from the learning perspective, I am interested in the learning perspective. So from the learning perspective, what Mario Kart has given Griffin is an immersive learning experience. An immersive learning experience that has helped him learn what he have gone through in that game. And he was able to retrieve what he has learned in a crisis situation in a matter of few seconds. I believe that that is the ultimatum of learning. And to take note of, Mario Kart is not just another game. It is a very, very popular game played by 100 million people across the globe. And it is not about what games they are playing. It is what the game playing is doing to their brains, to their minds. They are taken through an immersive learning experience where they learn things and they are able to retrieve what they have learned in a crisis situation in a matter of few seconds, which is phenomenal. That is the first story to drive in the point why gamification. The second story is about a television show named Aviators. Aviators is a television show aired by Global Television Network. This show is all about flying. In each episode, the show director explores the different dimensions of flying. And in one particular episode, he asked himself, what will happen if you put a 10-year-old boy in charge of an airplane? A 10-year-old boy. So he took Remy, a 10-year-old kid, to a flight simulator where pilots are trained. And what happened? Within 90 seconds and no training, Remy landed a Boeing 737. When the person who was in charge of the flight simulator asked Remy, how in the world could you do it? With a smile, Remy replied, Flight Simulator, the game by Microsoft. So, if you look into the stories of Griffin and Remy, they are not outliers or exceptions. This is the new way of seeing things. As rightly said by Mr. Al Gore, the vice president of the United States in 2011, when he was invited for a keynote speech in the Games for Change Festival, his opening statement became legendary. He said, games are the new normal. That games are the new normal. That is the language that millennials understand. And if you want to reach out to them, if you want to engage them, if you want to involve them, we have to talk in their language. And one more point to drive in why gamification. There are many different types of games. Can you tell me which is the most popular type of game? There are shooter games, arcade games, sports games, puzzle games. But if you look into the stats, you can see that strategic games are the most popular games. And what is so special about strategy? For example, take the game of Age of Empires. When you're playing the game, you are given all the resources like wood, uh, ore, and gold. With that, you have to build your empire and you have to defend your empire against the enemies, which needs a lot of strategic thinking. What is so special about strategic thinking? It is one of the most needed skill of the 21st century. Corporates are shelling out millions of dollars to build strategic thinking among their workforce. And here we have an activity, a voluntary activity. That means people are never forced to do that activity. And people spend long hours, days, weeks, months, breaking their head on this particular activity. And the outcome of activity is something priceless, strategic thinking. So whether we like it or hate it, we can't afford to ignore it. That is the reason why we have to consider gamification very seriously. And that is the reason why gamification is taking the world by storm. So this is the intro that I want to give related to gamification and the 21st century skills. Over to Mr. Srikumar.
Kumar is mute.
Yeah, sir, you're mute.
Thanks, Dr. Manu Melwin Joy. Actually, you have raised two important stories. I mean, you narrated two important stories by which we have come to know how games can be effectively used for even strategic thinking and other activities. So it looks great because the child was able to save its grandparents, and also a child was able to learn through flight simulation. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. So we'll quickly go to Asha S. Kuti, who's from MD College in Kerala, and she's doing research in gamification. So she'll be talking about how this can be integrated into education, the teaching process. So over to Asha S. Kuti.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so let me share my screen, sir. Okay. Okay. Even before moving into my session, I would like to say a special thanks to Srikumar sir, because I am an academician as well as a researcher. So this is a wonderful platform me to have all around this experts. And the second thing which I'm very tensed as well as excited is I have my guide here, Manu sir. So it's indeed my privilege to have a session with him, and its dreams come true. So thank you both Srikumar sir and Manu sir. As you know, we all are familiar with this kind of game-based learning and all. So I know you all will have seen this particular image, right? In Google, it is you will get this image. So it is just initially I would tell you about the power of games, and as Manu sir has already mentioned, why gamification. So whether it be gamification or whether it be game-based learning or serious games, it's all about games. So first we should know what games are capable of. So this particular picture is actually, it's a portrait, it's a photograph it is a photo taken by Phil Tolson. So actually he wanted to capture the emotion of gamers when they were playing games. Okay. So he kept the camera in front of the people who were playing video games. So if you observe that particular photo, you will understand that there was a crinkle of eyes. The mouth was round. It shows optimism, and the eyebrows were up in surprise. So actually what this photograph indicated is this particular gamer is in verge of an epic win. Okay, so as people playing games or as people familiar with these terms, I know you all will be knowing about the epic win. It's something, an extraordinary outcome. So when you're playing game, you even didn't have an idea that such a thing ever existed. You were not in a position to understand that you were able to crack it. So when you are in a verge of an epic win, it's actually you're shocked to discover that this particular thing exists in a game and you're capable of being there. Okay, so what is that? According to Jane McGonigal, what she told us that this is the portrait, this is the picture, this is the face you want to see in millions of people all around the world. All the people who are enthusiastic and they are like facing the obstacles. When this is the face what you want to see in people when they are facing obstacle. So actually this shows the power of games. See, but let's compare it with the reality. We all not most of the people are very much active in their gamified life, or they're in their online life. Like when they are playing games now, they have a best version of themselves. Okay, so it's like you have an obstacle, you readily solve that obstacle, you go and ask, you go to help people, you notice a problem, somehow you manage to tackle it, you sit hours long, as Manu sir already told, like you bring all your effort into solving it. Even if you fail, you are going to try it again and again. No issue how many times you fail. Whenever you confront with obstacles, now you're happy, you're dealing with a happy face. But please do think, what is it in a real life, how it is like? We feel very frustrated, we feel unhappy, anxious, depressed. So actually there is a difference between a person in its online version as an offline version. But actually the question is how to minimize this gap. Have your best version in the online be brought into your real life. Even though it's true that there is a difference in the games and its reality, but this is a question that is to be answered seriously. So it's actually, what are the gamers good at? So this is actually this particular metrics. It was developed by Jane McGonigal. Actually, she has written books. There are TED Talk in her name. So it's very genuine person who literally believe in the power of games. Okay. So what she has told is that there are 4 qualities which gamers have. First one is urgent optimism, which means that gamers are willing to get engaged with problems. They are very optimistic. They are very confident. It's not just confidence, it's urgent optimism, which means they not only want to solve problem, they are not only willing to solve problem, but they strictly believe that there is a success. It's not that one day, someday everything will turn. It's not with that mindset. They surely believe that there is going to be a solution. There is a success. Then comes the another quality is the social fabric, especially when you play online games and all. You are getting engaged with people, you are getting networked with people, you are getting connected with people even who you have not seen. But still you have a trust. You have a sort of relationship, you have a sort of bonding. It is that you both, all of you are engaged, involved into same game. You are playing the game, so you have a trust that they will keep by the rules, they will not cheat. So that is a kind of social fabric which the gamers are good in developing. Then comes blissful productivity. See, we never have felt frustration playing hours of games. Gamers actually love to do that. Okay, for them it is better than going to sleep or hanging out or like something like a hobby. So this is not as blissful productivity, which you do something hard with a very happy face, with with your own enjoyment. And finally, it is the epic meaning, which means gamers always want to get associated with a mission, something, a greater purpose. It's not that you come, you learn, you go. They should get a feeling that they are a part of a greater mission. So actually, these are the things which a gamers are good at. Actually, this is research findings, what I'm mentioning here. It's not just assumptions. So now I would like to share a story with you. So actually, the story, it's actually not a story, it's a part of history, I would say. That is, there was a kingdom of Lydia. The story happened 2,500 years ago. So at that time in that kingdom, there was a strong famine. So people were not getting food. They were literally fighting. They somehow, everyone want food, right? You can't survive without food. So somehow you want to eat something. So people were crazy. They were fighting, they were killing. And now the king was in a confusion. I'm having a crazy situation, so I should get a crazy solution. So what he did, he made a policy. He declared a policy. He invented a game called dice game, the playing the dice. Okay. So over that period, instead of dice as we see now, they use sheep knuckles as dice. Right. So he told that, he made it a policy. He told that one day we'll have a normal life, we'll have food to eat, we'll sleep as normal human beings. And on the second day, we'll play the die. Fine. So the entire day you will play the die. So what happened? One day you have a normal life, second day you play, again you have a normal life, the another day you play. So what happened, this went for 18 years. And all these days when people were playing, they were so immersed. As Manu sir told, immersive learning. So this is something like you were so immersed into the game, you forgot about your hunger. You forgot that you didn't have something to eat and you were so happy. Okay. So 18 years, this way they continued and they were able to survive the famine. But then the story does not end here. After 18 years also, what happened is that this particular famine didn't come to an end. Now our poor king have to get a solution, right? So somehow he can't keep asking players play and all. So what he did, he divided the entire kingdom into two. And he told his followers that now we are going to have a final dice game. What we are going to do is, two people are there, we'll play a final dice game, and those people who win will go for an epic adventure. You will have to find a new place where you have plenty to consume. You will establish our civilization over there. And those people who fail, or rather who don't win the game, they will remain in the kingdom with a limited resources and somehow they will survive. Actually, this is what happened, and history says that when millions of years after, when the DNA test was done by for the Roman Empire, they could trace back to this Lydian DNA. So it means that this is not just a story; it's a true incident, and this single incident can say the power of games. So this is all about power of games. So games, what it do is that it will create a feeling of urgent optimism, and you feel like you are part of a social fabric, and you are blissfully productive, and you always want to achieve something which is bigger than yourself. Fine. So now this is what it's all about, games. Now come back to this higher education section. Okay. So we many of you are in higher education, academicians. So we'll definitely know what are the student related issues in terms of when you're teaching. See, first one is that your students are actively disengaged. It's not that they're disengaged, they're actively disengaged. And the second is that there is a lack of intrinsic motivation. There is a lack of true passion. They don't have that sort of interest for the subject where what they are learning. And third one is there is a lack of deep learning, which means people know all the concepts, all the theories and all. But when it comes to applying it in a practical situation, there is a failure. And now then the fourth one is there is a skill gap. What skills you acquire when you are out of a higher education institute and actually the skills which you require. There is a gap, and actually that gap is widening. So these being the issues in higher education and power of games on the other side, can we use gamification or game-based learning or serious game, whatever it be, can we use it as a pedagogical tool? That's my thought for this session. So whether it be gamification, whether it be game-based learning, or whether it be serious games, whether this particular thing, I don't say that this is the sole solution for all issues in higher education, but this intervention can definitely be a solution. And there are many findings, research findings. Since here we are talking about serious games, I have only included findings regarding to serious games. Research has showed that a serious game can facilitate better understanding about the concept, prolong the retention of knowledge, better immersion, better engagement. Your academic performance is about to it's increase. You have a positive attitude towards learning. It's all about a pleasant and happy mood. Then it is like your performance increases, your participation is more. So as such, all these things are which are empirically proved, and this is my point of thought. So this is why games have power. It has higher education system has problem. So why can't we use the power of games to solve these issues? That's all from my part.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Asha Skuti. Actually, you raised so many issues, but basically it's about higher education. And of course, the Jain, you mentioned about Jain also, but I think there are conflicting views about her approach to gamification. We'll come to that later. So we'll quickly go to Amit Agrawal. He's a IIM Bangalore, IMB graduate, and he's CEO and founder of Oki Poki, and P with a capital. And it's a very interesting name. We'll find out from him how he found out this, decided to have this name also. And basically, it's an English learning app, the first English learning app for preschool children in India. And I was told that it has more than 240,000 users already, and it develops cognitive, emotional, and social emotional skills. So that is very promising. So we would like to know from you, because so many parents are concerned about the use of games, despite the fact that there's so much benefits, as Asha Skuti and also Dr. Manu told us in the beginning. But would you like to throw some light on how the parents can find out the appropriate games for their age group, and how you develop this concept of Oki Poki?
Sure. Thank you so much, everybody. I would honestly request some of you to keep camera on if that's okay with you. It makes the virtual event look more human. Thank you so much for people who immediately responded. Appreciate that. I'm Amit, and currently I'm building Oki Poki app. Some of you may have heard about my YouTube journey, but specifically, I think we are going to talk about educational concepts around gaming and gamification, right? So I already heard about a lovely experience from Manu on immersive gaming, how a real life scenario can be taught very easily. So I'm going to shift and talk maybe slightly newer points. I think I see a lot of carelessness with my parents, friends. I know that you have stressful lives. Some of you on this call may be parents, about choosing the software that you trust your child with. Kids are very impressionable, especially the age group that I deal with. These are preschoolers, and increasingly I think we're adding more content and going to primary school children. very, very impressionable age. So please don't be careless. There are simple hacks, especially on Play Store, which is, I'm assuming, is majority. Actually, Apple also gives you those filters to choose age appropriate content. There are simple kid-safe certifications which are available for you to choose from. Because somebody asking a question, I hear some sound. Okay, not sure. So these are simple signals that are there on stores because they also want children to be safe. Sorry, is there some disturbance?
I think somebody is on unmute.
Yeah, request somebody who's not speaking up to please mute themselves. Thank you, that's much better. And with that, I'll sort of change gears. I mean, it's easy, just be conscious. And if I can, some of you are educators, please be equally careful. Internet has a darknet. Internet has a lot of predators. And especially I get very worried because of the age group that I deal with. So safety is a big deal. I know there's some other topic later, we'll talk about that. But choose carefully. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to screen out a app's content, maybe 10, 20 minutes of screening, and then you can give a trusted access to your students, to your children very easily. Coming back, I think the way I applied an Okipoki story is simple. Let me just quickly share my screen and introduce Okipoki to you guys. Yeah, can you see this screen? So not a lot of slides, simple things. I think we are market leaders in preschool space across the types of apps. It is just that we do language learning now. And you'll see simple principles of gamification being applied here. The whole journey is through a very interactive process of discovering new words for a little child. There's a toy room where they get toys. There is ranks. Simple concept. I don't think we've designed for addiction at all because conscientiously right from our first release, we didn't want to do that. And I'll talk about that, the framework that we follow. But I forgot to introduce this guy. So this guy, Okipoki, is an octopus. That's where the name comes from, in case some of you were wondering. So when we were launching a product, the kids relate to a character at this age. If you go to any mall pre-COVID era, you would find all children wearing some character or the other, whether it's Dora or Princess or something else, Mickey Mouse. So they're very enamored by these characters. So we thought if we have to connect with them, we need to start with building our own character. We built out several, did a research and landed on octopus, Okipoki. It made sense for multiple reasons because Okipoki word, because it's alliterative, it rolls off a 3-year-old's tongue very easily. So they can say it, unlike the other characters that we were experimenting with, which was an elephant, we had a lion, and a peacock is what we were trying. So this guy won because of that. Also, when we started researching the animal that octopus is, it's got multiple brains, super intelligent, and so many other things that I can keep going on and on about. But that's how it arrived. Now, simple content done beautifully has been our forte. So fun things that we do is we build very, very contextual ads. There are coins for gamification, but also I think if you look at simple gamification around child being able to talk to an app and getting an intelligent answer in a fun voice sometimes is a lot of fun. This is the same thing that kids do when they're playing with Siri a lot more in the US, or more recently Google Assistant. A lot of kids have been found using and playing with it. And this was fun as well because the kind of answers we give back to wrong answers is quite humorous, and kids love humor. Everybody loves humor, but in general, what we found is kids are more fun. They're more carefree and they laugh a lot and they love it. They sing and dance to this guy. And in the end, you can figure out your rank. For the school principals here, yeah, we have the capability to do a school rank. And we can also match up across your branches, which you don't see here, but that's possible. So the areas that we were trying to balance out, so one is gamification for me is two things, right? What good teachers do in classroom, we learn from them and we put that inside the app. In preschool, you get those stars on hands. Some teachers do that, right? There's appreciation for any good deed done. Those are two simple gamification principles that we applied. And instead of stars, we started giving them toys that they can play with, coins that they can feel happy about, and high fives in multiple languages, congratulating them whenever they got an answer right, just like an engaging teacher would do in the class. And that's the magic, because it is so rare to simplify the UI for that. But I think there is going to be a larger debate about other things. So I want to talk about a 3-factor formula. So what are we balancing out when we're dealing with children, when we're gamifying it? I think you got to be aware of addiction. You can't go super addictive, and it can be done by design. So if you think through your design, apply proper design thing, you can build in de-addiction into the product itself. So while we market it very heavily, as you can see here, there's a line. There's an in-app timer for gadget control. I'm proud to say that 90% of my parents don't use this ever. And why am I proud of that? Even though I built the feature, the reason is they're not required. Our average session times that the child is spending is always less than half an hour. So it's never a parent's worry. Not only it's a value-added time, right? But it's also a very designed for a de-addiction product from first screen. Not only kids love it, but they also feel fatigue and they go off. You got to balance it out. Safety, I think I spoke a lot about. That's the second major variable we care about. Third is everything fun about your class. Now, I don't take an app as anything but a classroom. When a child is on my session, that's a classroom. And we have interesting learnings how people from various cities are engaging more versus less, how they're launching more often versus not, how they're learning more often versus not, how many kids learn after getting the first wrong. In the first attempt, they get the word wrong, and how they get it right. Can you plan that whole journey just like a classroom and make it interactive and fun? So that's what it's been for us. If there are any questions, please pop in the chat box. Otherwise, I would like to wrap here if that's okay with you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Amit Agrawal, and also very interesting to hear your Oki Poki story. And also, we are very glad to know that children are not spending so much time when they are using your app for learning. So that is also good news for parents. So actually, when this kind of good news spreads, I think this awareness and also this scare that gaming will take away their productive hours of learning and all will vanish. So we have hope in people like you bringing out good products for the market. So we'll quickly go to Nilesh Sinha. Actually, he has been developing some products for the HR. I assume it's for the HR management. So I think there the skill and aptitude thing comes. So whether that kind of aptitude and skill can be tested and in the school level itself. So whether that possibilities are there, how does he see the possibility of gamification in that area? Mr. Nilesh. Nilesh, are you there? Nilesh Sinha. Nilesh is there?
He is in the participants list, but he is not responding.
Okay. So I think we'll go to Dr. Mark Griffiths, and he's from Nottingham Trent University, UK. Actually, he has got very interesting profile. I was told that he writes one research paper every 2 days. So that is amazing output from what do you call a research or a professor. in any area, I believe. And I have gone through some of his writings on the psychology of gaming. So I understand that there is something called addictive personality, and he has even studied how footballers can become kind of game addicts, and then that affects their performance. So there is, despite all the good news that we saw in the first few presentations, there is always concern about the negative fallout of gaming. And every day we find in newspapers so many reports. So what is your take on this, and how best, what are the problem areas that we need to look at from the parent perspective, from the teacher's perspective? So over to Dr. Mark Griffiths.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. I've not got anything prepared on slides. I just want to, because I only got 6 or 7 minutes. For those who have no idea who I am, I've spent the last 34 years studying what I call behavioral addictions. That's addictions that don't involve the ingestion of a psychoactive substance. And I've been publishing on video game addiction for the past 31 years. And I think I've published more papers on gaming addiction than anybody else in the world. Even though I research on gaming addiction, I am not anti-gaming in the slightest. All 3 of my children are very avid gamers. In fact, my youngest son, he's actually in another room at the moment gaming. I'm not anti-gaming in the slightest. For those of you who aren't aware, is that something called gaming disorder, that was actually introduced into the latest international classification of diseases in May 2019. The World Health Organization actually introduced gaming disorder because there is now enough empirical evidence to show that a small but significant minority do seem to game to the neglect of everything else in their life and causes them clinical problems in their life. The good news is when we talk about gaming disorder, is in terms of the highest quality studies that have been done, just under 2% of studies that have been done all around the world now have suggested that people might have a gaming disorder. And I use the word might because most of the studies that use, self-report diagnostic scales, these cannot actually diagnose people. All we can do in those kind of big, large epidemiological studies is make our best guess at the percentage of people that might have a gaming disorder. The other thing I ought to mention is that gaming disorder is not the same as gaming addiction. These are 2 things that are often conflated together, and it all comes down to basically how you define gaming addiction to start with. And from my perspective, the one thing I absolutely have to say to you is that excessive gaming doesn't actually necessarily have any relationship with addictive gaming. There are lots of gamers out there who play very excessively, but there are no negative detrimental effects in their life whatsoever. So we can't possibly call that an addiction, even if they're playing a lot of hours every day. And what I want to do just in the remaining minutes that I've got left is, one, to tell you how I define gaming addiction, and also to talk about what I believe are the 3 competing sets of characteristics that actually define and explain how people acquire, develop, and maintain a gaming addiction. Now, for any addiction, I don't care whether this is to gambling, gaming, sex, exercise, work, or any drugs, is to me, there are 6 fundamental core components of addiction. And these are what we call salience, mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal, relapse, and conflict. And very briefly, salience means that if I apply these to gaming, is that for salience, this means that gaming is the single most important thing in my life. I will do this activity to the neglect of everything else in my life. Even if I'm not actually gaming, I'm thinking about the next time I'm gaming. So really, this is what we call total preoccupation with the activity. The next component is mood modification, is that people use games as a way, and there's some paradox here, is that they either use games either to get buzzed up, high, aroused, or excited, or they use games for the exact opposite, to tranquilize, to numb, to escape, to de-stress, and to relax. The third component is what we call tolerance, and this is the idea that over time people need to spend playing more and more hours of gaming every single day. You might have started off playing 30 minutes or an hour a day, then you build up to 3 or 4 hours a day, and eventually, for those people who are genuinely addicted, and it would be a very small minority indeed, probably spending 12, 14, maybe even 16 hours a day gaming. The fourth component is what we call withdrawal symptoms. And this means that on a psychological level, If somebody who is genuinely addicted to gaming, if they're unable to play their games, is on a psychological level, they'll feel more frustrated, more irritable, more anxious. And on a physiological level, they will experience things like nausea, stomach cramps, anxiety attacks. The fifth component is the most important one. This is what we call conflict. And this means that the gaming is so conflicting in this person's life, is that depending on what age you are, it conflicts with their schoolwork, college work, university work, or job, depending on what age you are. It would also conflict with all your relationships, your partner, your children, your friends, and other people you know. And also, it's what I call intrapsychic conflict. There's conflict within the person themselves. They know that they're gaming too much. They know they should probably cut down and moderate their gaming, but they feel unable to do so, and they experience a subjective loss of control. And the question I always get asked by the media and by gaming developers, well, what's the difference between, if you like, an excessive healthy enthusiasm and an addiction? And for me, that's very, very simple. Healthy excessive enthusiasms add to life, and addictions take away from it. On that very simple rule of thumb, very few people would be classed as genuinely addicted to games. And then finally, we've got what we call relapse. And this is the idea that if you've managed to give up gaming, very excessive gaming, for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or even 2 years, is that when you go straight back into the addictive cycles you were in before. And the final thing I'm going to leave you with today is that when we talk about gaming addiction, we have to talk about whose responsibility is this. And to me, this all comes down to the different kinds of characteristics that feed in to the acquisition, development, and maintenance of gaming behavior and gaming addiction. And the three sets of characteristics are what we call the individual characteristics, the situational characteristics, and the structural characteristics. Most research that's carried out on gaming addiction looks at the individual characteristics. These are the things that reside within the individual. So on a biological level, this might be a person's biological or genetic predisposition. On a psychological level, this might be things like a person's personality, their attitudes, their expectations and beliefs. And also it might be to do with how parents have been brought up and society's attitudes towards gaming in a particular country. But there are also what we call structural and situational characteristics. So to give you an example of situational characteristics, these are the kind of things that are outside of the gamer's influence. And these are things, for instance, like marketing or advertising. These are often things that get us to play games in the first place. And then finally, we've got what we call the structural characteristics, the things that are actually designed by developers into the game to make people game again and again and again. And this might be to different skill levels. It might be to do with the realism of the graphics. It might be to do with the sounds and noises that you have in the game. It might be to do with the game structure. And it's really what we're talking about here. It's all about the rewards that are built into games. And when you think about addiction relies on total reinforcement, total rewards. The more reinforcements there are, the more potentially addictive a game can be. But it's actually those very rewards and those very reinforcements that underpin gamification. The very same things that can make a game so appealing and can be applied to lots of different situations, that people get those rewards and reinforcements. And the good news is, most of the time, that gamified structure is going to be something very positive in a person's life. But if they're a very small minority, this can actually turn out to be very negative, and people might end up with a gaming addiction. So I'll leave it there. And obviously, when I come to the panel discussion later, I can expand on any of the points that I've made.
So thank you, Dr. Mark Griffiths. Actually, you raised so many important points, and actually many people are confused about how some people become addicts and they run into problems. Now we are seeing so many reports where children fall prey to this, and maybe, as you rightly pointed out, the developers create that kind of a structure which makes these children, there's some reward structure or challenge structure that makes them play again and again despite the failures. And some game like Free Fire, where they even purchase virtual weapons, and so that will continue. It's a very addictive nature of the gaming also. So we'll quickly go to Dr. Meenakshi Narula. She is principal of Shremsport Futuristic K-12 School, and she has actually done a lot of good work in this area of gamification in education. And let's hear from her how parents can be given that confidence, and also teachers can be taught how to involve children in good games, I mean, serious games, which will help them in their studies.
Yeah, thank you, Sri Kumar sir, for this wonderful opportunity. And before I begin, I just want to ask, I guess I am having some unstable internet. So am I audible properly?
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
All right. So just would like to talk about gamification, as everybody is discussing, and so many wonderful thoughts have been shared by each and every panelist, whether talking about, you see, the research behind gamification, importance of gamification, whether, I mean, that immersive experience as well, and the talkie-talkie. I mean, number of things are coming up, and as our school, how we are trying our level best to make the even parents understand what exactly is the importance of gamification. Here, I would like to tell you, first, we have to involve ourselves. We have to enjoy that kind of gamification. Only then we can create that interest in our children. It's not like that we'll just introduce any topic, any game to our children. Okay, fine, whatever, ABCD. Here I'm talking about, and it can be anything. Suppose here we are talking about Oki Pocky or maybe Mentimeter, Kahoot, and number of games are available, number of digital tools are available. If we just introduce something to a child and we do not enjoy it properly, we do not have proper, you see, research on that particular tool, how the same can be used, we will not be able to get 100% output from that very particular tool, and we will not be able to convince either the parents or the students like how that tool is really applicable and useful. I myself, I'm working as, I'm a MI master trainer, and I have been training teachers also through mentoring the mentors. I am Adobe Creative Educator Level 2, and number of other tools, whether it's a Bunsy Ambassador, it's the Book Creator. I have already, you see, gone into depth of that particular game and just explored the various aspects, like how the same can be utilized. If from my point of view, I talk about why gamification, the first point I also would like to highlight, it gives immersive experience to not only the students, but the teachers as well. If I talk about the teachers, gone are the days when the teachers, they were supposed to be the sages on the stage. They are no more even the facilitators also. They are the co-learners. They are the co-researchers also. They have to research to give the best experience to the 21st century learners. And they certainly give a different appeal to the learning. They increase the learning appeal when we introduce anything through games. And fun and innovation, like we are not having any doubt for that when we are teaching through gamification. And another thing is, there is unconscious learning that happens through games, and that is really very important. Sometimes the children, they are not interested in learning to a particular concept, and when that concept we introduce through gamification, and the children, they just learn unconsciously, right? And digitization, obviously 21st century learners, it's a need of the hour. They should know using different kinds of apps, and it fosters learning also and enhances the engagement of the students in the class. Sometimes we even do not realize when we are teaching on this virtual platform nowadays, and even we have just I would like to say, as and when we were teaching in the classrooms, physical classroom, the same way we started teaching on this online or the virtual platform. We did not even realize like there could be some different way. Maybe we were not having that much time. Overnight, we had to switch to this very platform. We were not prepared for that. But now it has been more than a year, and we have been researching a lot. We have been incorporating number of strategies too. And we have learned like, yes, these digital tools for gamification, they would enhance the engagement on this virtual platform, and we will be able to engage each and every child. Like in our class, it's not like that there is no backbencher in our these virtual classes. Everybody is on the same panel, so same window. And real-time feedback, that is a wonderful aspect of this gamification. When we make our parents, our students, they realize, they even see, like they get addicted to learning instead of getting addicted to a particular game. You must be knowing, like in the recent years, even everybody was having this Candy Crush. They were having crush for those kind of games. They can have that crush for learning when they will be having right digital tools with them and rightly introduced. Another thing is leaderboards and badges. That is another wonderful aspect of this gamification. And here just I would like to talk about some of the AI tools that we have introduced in our school, and we are getting a wonderful feedback. And even as sir, you asked like how we can convince the parents for that. Certainly when the parents see the output, like how the child is having, there is having a lot of transformation in child's learning and in the behavior too, right? And in his performance, how confident the child becomes. So certainly they will get convinced. And here number of digital tools that we are using is AI Dungeon for writing skills of the students. We have introduced in our senior grades this tool, and their children, they are learning like this, enjoying this quick draw tool through Google AI tool. Akinator, this is an amazing tool where the children, they get to know, they develop their questioning skills, right? This is really very, very important. So I mean, to whom they will be talking, I mean, it's not possible they will be having somebody with whom they can interact for a long period of time, and from here, this very platform, they will be able to enhance their questioning skills. They can play damsharaz and all, and to take decision well in time. You see, all our those games that we used to play, this rock paper scissors and all, that everything has been transferred on this virtual platform. Cementris, this tool, I would like to tell you, we have introduced this tool in our school, and the children, they have enhanced their vocabulary. They got to know how to find the connection between different words, how the words, they are related to each other, and they have to find the best suited word. This is increasing their vocabulary and obviously critical thinking too. Teachable Machine is another wonderful app that we have introduced, and here the parents, they are just noticing their children, they are teaching the machine actually through different techniques. When they are using, they have to differentiate something or whatever, and they are making their own I would like to say different apps on this machine. And the auto draw tool, this also we use in our school, and we have got wonderful response. There is a poet in each and every child, or every human being, I would like to say. And the children, they get to know how to develop the poems as well. They get to know, and this is amazing tool, poem generator tool. Kulions is an amazing tool and is really very wonderful for the teachers here, I would like to say, where the teachers, they are helping and developing number of amazing reading comprehensions. This is amazing tool for them. And Kialo, we are involving the students in online debates. So here everything, you see, this is making learning visible. When everything is visible, so there is no need to convince the parents. We have to bring some change in child's attitude, in child's behavior, in child's performance. And for that, on this online platform, we are having these wonderful tools. Inkle Writer is another amazing writing app that we are using with our students. My Story Time, wonderful platform that we are using, where the children, they are having, you see, I would like to say tremendous, they can have their exposure to create their own autobiographics, record their audios, stories and all, and share the worldwide. Emoji Scavenger Hunt, this is also, I mean, have been very popular. Most of you must have been using this. Loopy, the children, they get to know how to make connection between different things, right? Maybe they are related to each other positively or having a negative impact on each other. They understand the concepts behind. It's a tool for, you see, thinking in systems right from an early age. And there are another most popular games, wordworld.net, learning apps.org, quizzes, Mentimeter, Kahoot, and number of another apps are available. My objective is, I just want to say, through the usage of these plenty of AI tools, when we see a lot of change, a sea change in the child's engagement in the class, and even the children, they talk about this with the parents, we need not to convince them. So this is what I just wanted to share.
It is indeed very interesting to note that you have done so much work on, and you have also described so many tools that the teachers can use, and of course the real-time feedback. And the important point that you stressed is that children should become addicted to learning rather than to the games or the digital tools. So that is a very important point. I think if that goal is there in everybody's mind, and then every product will be coming out that way only. So that's a very interesting point that you have said, and we'll come back to you in the next discussion session. So we'll go to Deepu Savior now from Sapphire. Actually, they have developed some program, I think, for the HR component of for the universities, I think. Skill assessment and evaluation and all are part of the education process. So where do you think we can use this gamification at the school level? Do you find any possibilities there?
Okay, so thank you, sir. Thank you for that question and for this opportunity. So, so just to give an introduction, so I am representing a company called Zappy Hire. So I'm one of the founders of Zappy Hire. And we are pure play a recruitment automation company in the sense that so basically I'm in the industry for the last 16 years. And in various roles or various capacities, we've been hiring a lot of people. I mean, I was working with companies like Bosch, Infosys, Oracle over the last 16 years. So when I, together with my friend, when I decided to start up Zappy Hire, one of the biggest things that we always used to ask ourselves was that, is the other products in the market, is it in line with the actual requirement? Because typically you look at recruitment, you see that traditionally people have been hiring based on the skills. You look at the skill, you ask for certain question, and you wait for the candidate to give the answer. And then you say, yeah, this particular person gave the right answer, so he should be a good candidate. But now the way people think or the way you hire is a little different. Now is the time of this behavioral interviews. You look at behavioral traits and so on and so forth. Now to bridge this recruitment and learning or the school education or higher education, I would say, when we as a startup, when we interview a candidate to our company, it's a very small company. We have around 20 people, 20 to 25 people on and off. So when we are hiring candidates, we find it very difficult to find a candidate who is actually meeting the cultural requirement of the organization. They may be having good skills. They may be having good communication skills or technical skills, but the behavioral aspects like how is their risk-taking agility? How is their decision-making power? Can they take a decision on the ground? And all these behavioral aspects are extremely important. So one of the ways in which we thought right from the beginning of Zappy Hire as a product is, how do we stand different and how do we bring validity to the results that we show to an interviewer? So from a higher education perspective, I think the same parallel can be drawn. Like before a student is passing out from, say, after engineering or MBA or MSW, or for that matter, suppose these students are taken through these various assessments on and off right through their curriculum, like maybe right from starting first year. Just imagine the first 3 months itself, you get a report about each candidate, and it says that this person has, his aspiration is this, he wants to be an entrepreneur, or he wants to be a technical leader, or he wants to be a journalist, whatever it be, or he wants to be a business leader. Every aspiration that a person, forget about a student or a professional or a layman, every person has an aspiration, and that aspiration has a lot of behavioral traits around it. And that's a matter of fact. So you go to SHL, you go to any other organization, they'll have all these holistic parameters identified against each job role, a real world job of being a mom or being a father. Everything has its own behavioral traits attached to it. Just imagine if we can introduce this small mini games during the curriculum. I'm going back to the education sector again. During the curriculum, if you introduce the small games to understand, okay, now this is your aspiration. We understand that for this aspiration, these are the behavioral traits that you need. So you break down their goals, right? You break down their aspiration into multiple goals. And for each of these traits, suppose we have these gamified interventions to understand what is his inclination and what is his demonstration. It's a different thing that I want to be that, but do I have the capacity to do that? Or is it something which I can foster? I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't have the capability to take a decision. I don't have the capability to, I don't have the trust on other people to delegate things. Unless you delegate things, you can never be an entrepreneur. I'm telling from my example. Because the moment you take the entire thing on your bucket, there's no point. Even you'll never reach anywhere. So there was a situation where one of the very senior leader, he was asked by the CEO that, okay, hey, it's your very busy, seems like it's a busy day. What are you doing now? He said, I'm actually proofreading one of the mail that my secretary had sent to me so that I can send it to my client. So then the point was that, why did you hire the person? Your hiring is wrong. You're not, you are paid for your job, not for proofreading or doing somebody else's job, right? So that, I'm just to take an example, the power to delegate is one of the skill of an entrepreneur. Now, just on the first trimester or first semester of the academic curriculum, you understand that this guy wants to be an entrepreneur, but this particular skill has to improve a lot. That is the point when you can intervene and say that, hey, we understand that this is one area that you have to improve. So that by the end of that higher education, like the master's or a graduation, you are preparing the behavioral trait of the candidate. You're not making him, okay, be an entrepreneur. It's not like a capsule thing that he can give. It is, you have to treat each and every behavioral trait in its own fashion, give due importance to each of these things. And believe me, what we have seen is that it's very difficult to gauge a person based on, is he having a good leadership trait? It's very difficult. You have to break down leadership, find all the behavioral traits, and then assess each of these things separately. And that's what we try to do in Zappy here also. I'm not saying too much of the product, but that's what we do. I mean, it's a, as I said in the beginning stage, it's a very small world, because 2 years back, when we were working with one of our customers, like Federal Bank, so our company is managing the entire pan-India recruitment for Federal Bank and multiple ISAF Bank and all of the banks. So a lateral campus recruitment and everything. And I think Nibu is there in the call now. So Nibu was our consultant. So he was with IIT Madras at that time. And Nibu was helping us with understanding, and we were gamifying a real world, a Federal Bank branch. Even Nibu went to the extent of visiting multiple branches, understood what is being done on a daily basis, and understood what are the different behavioral traits and other technical skills that a banking employee might need. And we created a real world 3D model of the bank. And during the campus recruitment, we are taking, and even the bank, I think they covered almost 12,000 gamified simulations over the past 1.5 years through our platform, Federal Bank itself. So each of those campus recruitment attendee goes through this gamified simulation, and that is actually giving a real picture about the candidate's learnability or risk-taking agility or understanding about the industry. And all those things are inculcated in the candidate, and the interviewers are getting this feedback, during the interview. So rather than just having a resume in hand, now they have much more information in front of them to do that right interview. Again, we don't believe that gamification is not yet there, or the technology is not yet there to reject a candidate based on this. We can empower and enrich the profile so that decision makers or all those people who want to intervene and improve, they get a lot of data points from that. And now we are even going one step further with Dr. Manu sir. So Manu sir and we are currently working on a very active basis. I think we are meeting like a couple of times or 3 times per week. So we have signed an MOU with the Cochin University of Science and Technology. And now we are gamifying even more. We are going deeper into gamification of the entire candidate life cycle. So this is it. So basically on one side, even though I am trying to take some examples from the recruitment industry, the same is applicable on the academic industry also, academic arena domain as well. So all this to summarize, I would say, what a student wants to achieve, break it down into multiple traits, intervene each of the traits through mini gamified engagements. Like there is a lot out there in the market. So I think that will improve the chance of the student to achieve what he really wants to be. So with that, I would just close for the time being and take this to the next stage.
Actually, you raised some very interesting issues. Actually, this skill, identifying the right skills and aptitude is very much important for somebody to succeed in their life and career. So this is a major issue now faced by the industry. So if that can be found out at a very early stage, and if that can be developed, I'm sure that that will bring a lot of results. And so many mismatch between choice of careers, what to study, and ultimately they end up in some other industry. All these can be solved if this kind of gamification can help. So Nilesh Sinha, I think, has joined. And would you like to take this point further before we go to Melvin Bell? Nilesh, we couldn't get you earlier.
Hello, Raghavan. Hi, everyone. This is Nilesh from Delhi. I've been working in the field of human resource management for many years. My expertise has been into startup and other areas, particularly focusing the requirement of startups. We have also been associated with one of the leading structured organization called CGI. CGI is having its chapters all over the world. And the kind of work these people have been doing, it has been completely into gamification only. Gamification of startups we can talk about. Talking about my area of KPI and KRAs, it has been into gamification of HR. So in the course of my own startup journey, entrepreneurial journey, the kind of solutions which we have tried to bring for HRs, it's particularly about what kind of requirements they are looking for. Most of the times, whenever these startups, they are approaching any kind of company to frame their HR policies or to hire any HR, and then the person is looking through the existing set of guidelines. That's the conventional model. We need to remove it. It's an obsolete technology. What has to be done proactively is that the requirements of creating a complete pipeline or a framework of HR technologies completely lies based on the requirement and the theme of that company. If a company is a service sector company, we have to understand that if it's completely about a digital platform, we can create HR policies which are digital and agile. Most of these startups, which are digital-led startups, they are going digital and agile in terms of their HR strategies. On contrary, if the startup or a company is talking about a physical product where some kind of production unit has to be pipelined, some kind of production is involved, we need to come up with policies which are more, having a kind of physical presence where the policies has to be framework based on the physical involvement of people. Using the same, what we got to know that most of the process has to be pipelined to the people. And what happens wrong in the course of our own journey, we realized what happens wrong is that we create a policy, we make one of the best policies, and if the candidates, if the employee, if whosoever is working for the company, okay, HR being the most crucial resource, if they are not getting trained well, the entire effort goes in vain. So what we focus upon is how this gamification can be done for the L&D process, learning and development process, training and development process, coming up with tools which can help the people to understand that, yes, how the HR process has to be done. Imagine if you come up with a kind of ERP, which is really very nice, but it's very complex. People have to file their attendance. And in the course of filing an attendance, they have to go through a 5-step process. Login, profile, daily update tracker, then clicking to the date and then putting that, yes, I'm present today. Is it a friendly model? Not at all. The more we are taking time of the people in such activities, we are actually somewhere eating a big chunk of their bandwidth. From organizational perspective, this loss of bandwidth is a loss of the company. That is where we have been working to make the company understand that whatever is the pipeline, whether it is for the training process, whether it is for their HR orientation process or the optimization of human resource, gamification has to be implemented in those areas using L&D, using the modern tools and the analytical tools. Analytics is where we have been using gamification a lot. We have got companies which have been working with us. They used to share this, that ever since we have gone on this work from home basis, the attrition level has been rising. And it's not because we want the candidates to be laid off. It's because the candidates want to switch and they are ideally looking for new opportunities. Why is it happening? Two reasons. First reason is that majority of the companies, they have gone digital, which means if I'm physically at Delhi location, I would have been ideally looking for any kind of opening in a Delhi location based company. But in the digital scenario, I've started looking for opportunities in Bangalore, in Pune location, Hyderabad location, and in up to some areas, maybe in US companies also. This has to be minimized. So what we did, we came with a 7 level of happiness index model. This 7 level of happiness index model is nothing but a series of engagement activities, followed by certain areas of feedback forms, followed by certain areas of training and development modules, and how the existing model can be customized. This has helped in not just reducing attrition, but also to optimize and increase the happiness index of employees. These days, I believe, and I suppose most of the people here on call would agree that these two parameters are very important from HR analytics perspective and from companies' success perspective, that the attrition has to be minimized, and on the other hand, the happiness index of the employees has to be increased and optimized to the highest level. So these are the two metrics where we have been able to do quite well for the companies which have been working along with us. And the company where I have been aligned, which is Happiest Mind, it is one of the leading IT companies of Bangalore. And the kind of work we have been doing at Happiest Mind also involves the same process. We have tried to come up with certain engagement sessions. We have already shifted, and I think we are the first one in entire India to do that. We have completely shifted our Friday fun engagement activity to Wednesday, and the result has been good. So it again had come by way of a form itself. We had floated a form which is more about happiness index form. We do it quite often. We try to understand that what new thing implemented by us is doing something good for the employees, or if there is a rise or fall in the happiness index of the employees. Since we are an IT company, every month we are having new projects coming up. Now imagine if this month we have a higher happiness index and last month the happiness index was lower. We can understand that whatever project has been pipelined last month, it was somewhere eating not just the bandwidth of the employees, but it was also not making them happy. That's where we try to optimize the HR analytical part. And this is what we have been doing. So moving again to the engagement activity part, when we moved it from Friday to Wednesday, we realized that candidates have got a very higher rise in the happiness index. And in the feedback only, they mentioned that Monday and Tuesday goes like I recently had my weekend. Thursday, Friday is like the weekend is coming. So it's not Friday, it's actually Wednesday when they need some kind of engagement activity coming up. And that's what we did. So moving forward, gamification is a process which is a never-ending process, and we have been using it not just in the L&D aspect. We have been using it for minimizing attrition. We have been using it for planning the executive training calendar. We have been at the forefront in order of approaching all those training institutions, consultancies to provide all kind of solutions where a portion of the entire L&D should be focused on gamification only. So that goes for CGI, which is voluntary I'm associated with, and that also goes for Happiest Mind, where I'm working as an HR consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilesh. Actually, you have also raised hope about the implementation of HR, which and gamification HR, which also has some synergies with the other sectors that we are talking about. So that's a great news that you have given us. So we'll now quickly go to Melvin Bell from UK, and he is the founder of Focus Games. So they have developed over 100 games, and they are only in the serious games business. So that is what we are also talking about, and let's hear from him what serious games that they have developed.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. So I'm Melvin Bell, and I'm the co-founder and director of Focus Games. We are a company that's based in Glasgow, in Scotland, and we've been developing serious games since 2004. We, as you said, we have over 100 game titles. Over 3 million people have played our games. We only focus on serious games. We're not in the social game sphere. We're in the education learning sphere, and we cover 3 main areas. And I'm going to touch on these and a little reason why they're important, and also what's changing. So group activities. So we're going to talk about collaborative learning through games. So obviously face-to-face group activities is a key issue there. We know that people need to work in different ways. They can't always be face-to-face. So there's a lot of hybrid working that's becoming more prominent. And of course, there's individual learning where you just want to be working on your own and learning on your own. We focus quite heavily on health, social care aspect, and we work across a number of different areas, so universities, hospitals, medical schools, nursing schools, educational establishments, and of course corporate organizations as well. And I think what that says actually is that games are actually becoming much more mainstream with business. The number of organizations that we work with is vast, and they're major organizations with major names. So games are no longer sort of niche things. They're things that serious organizations really put front and center of what they do. We're also not limited to the topics that we can cover. Games lend themselves to a whole range of things. Just a few examples here, from bioeconomy to flu vaccine uptake, corona vaccine uptake, we'll talk about that maybe a bit later, dementia awareness, cystic fibrosis, so things which are actually really serious topics. But that doesn't mean that they cannot be educated and discussed using a game framework. So why games? Well, we know, and we all know, because we're all working in the game area, that games have been used for thousands of years as a way of learning, a way of engaging, a way of having fun. Children in particular instinctively use play as a way of learning. You think about how you learned to speak. You think about how you learn your native language. You think about how you learn social skills. You think about how you learn simple tactic skills. You usually did that by minor small games, playing, learning from each other. Instinctively, we enjoy games, and that's a really important thing, because that means that we can leverage that throughout our life in terms of engagement. Learning from each other peer-to-peer is really powerful. Again, if you think about how you learn a lot of your skills, you learn from your colleagues, from your peer group, from others. And this collaborative learning is really timeless. It doesn't matter whether you're 5, 55, or 85. You learn from each other, you work with each other, and those are great ways in which games can actually support and help that collaborative learning process. We look at things around primary school, high school area, college and universities, and then into the workplace. And games really have a place in all of those for different things and doing different functions. But certainly, games instinctively are something that people look forward to. People tend not to shy away from it. It tends to be something that they enjoy, they think of as a positive experience. And we try and leverage that right the way through the age groups and through the skill levels in terms of how we use games, whether it be board games, whether it be card games, whether it be digital games, etc. And games are not, as we know, they're not trivial. They have some serious impact. One of our games, Appearance Game, which is looking about helping young people in particular, children in particular, understand about diversity, encourage acceptance around visible differences, and understand how to cope with that and how to manage that. We work with the Centre for Appearance Research, which is a university-based research in the UK, and they've done some randomized trials around using our games in terms of engaging, in this case, 9 to 11-year-olds, in this discussion about difference, about diversity, and about how to manage their thoughts and their feelings and their approaches to their society. And just by playing one game, actually in the control group, then there was a significant increase in their knowledge and appreciation of what difference meant and how to approach it. So games can be really, really powerful way in terms of dealing with social issues as well as educational issues. Move away from the kids into a much older group, which I think might be helpful in terms of its collaborative work, is looking at flu vaccine. This is for adults, and this was about encouraging people to take up the flu vaccine, because quite a number of people don't take up the flu vaccine. And this was a study which was done with our game from Queen's Belfast University. And most people, as we would expect, enjoyed playing the game. 80 and 90% enjoyed playing games, so that's fine. But more significantly is that a third of them improved the perception of the flu vaccine. And 84% of those who would classify themselves as vaccine hesitant changed their mind. So games are not just about social skills, they're not just about educational skills, that's about quite serious, impactful learning changes and behavioural changes that people can think towards. One of the new ones, which is again looking at the same social aspect, again is under a study, looking at dementia awareness and actually helping young people, kids, understand what dementia is and actually why their parents or their grandparents probably are behaving in a particular way, and what does dementia mean for them and how to understand them, and therefore through that, how to help and support and be a good family member. So games, really powerful. Games are a great way to engage people, they're a great way to learn, and they're a great way to build social components to your life as well. Now, we come up to hybrid learning. Pandemic, we've all been affected by it. It's disrupted training, it's disrupted education, disrupted everything. There was a path towards going towards digital and online, excuse me, and the pandemic, I think, has just accelerated that because we're seeing that people are socially distant, that they're working in different ways, they can't always get together, and sometimes actually it changes very quickly. They can be together in one period of time and very quickly move off into another. So that has a fundamental change, I think, in terms of how we view games and how we view games in education around collaborative learning. Whether it be physical games or digital games for the single or the few, to how do we deal and manage with education using games for the masses, so large groups, whether it be in a classroom or whether it be online. Using things like Teams and Zoom as we're doing today, probably 2 years ago, that would have been a very niche thing for most people. Now I think most people are quite adept and used to using these types of tools in their day-to-day life. So why not use them as a way of supporting and enhancing the collaborative learning and using games as a way of improving that? We know, as we've all worked in using these tools, when you first start Zoom with Teams, it can be very much a monologue. It can be you talking into the night sky. Using games as a way of actually encouraging people to actually not just use the chat, but actually to talk to each other, to engage with each other and collaborate. And again, that from an educational point of view is a really significant thing to do. We've seen our own business change and our own customers change. Last year, this is actually our, just for context, this is our floor game, which is a simulation game for helping manage emergency rooms. February 2020, the best way in which you were using that was exactly that. Standing around the table, everyone engaged, everyone involved, everyone talking, everyone getting excited about what they're doing. Roll forward a year and you've got some people socially distanced in a room, you've got some people on big screen TVs, you've got cameras overhead, and you're working in a different way. But the fundamental thing is you're looking for that collaborative engagement. You're looking for people to share experiences, to learn from each other, and to use that as a way of developing better skills, better ways of working, or just a change in your behavior. In our education portfolios, things that were done in nurse education, which were done in small group face-to-face, 1 year later, exactly the same resources, but we're doing this online. We're using Zoom, we're using Teams, we're using digital engagement to really get that education continuing. And people like that because what it does is it gives them flexibility, it gives them accessibility to learning regardless of where they are. Now, hopefully we're not always going to be in a pandemic, but I think what this does highlight is that the future is probably much more around using hybrid learning, collaboration across either face-to-face in a room or across the ether. But that's really going to be the change that we're seeing going forward. Learners will be semi-detached, they'll be in different places. Some will work remotely, but they still want to work together. They still want to be interactive, they still want to be collaborative. And group learning is really a strong and important thing that we all know from educators, that working together face-to-face or on digital platforms really is a must. But we have to find ways in which we can do that. And I think games are a great way to break that ice, create a vehicle in which people can collaborate together. And of course, it's fun and people enjoy it. And it's something which people find is valuable. So that was really all I want to say about collaborative part. I think games are a really significant part here. The future is very much about working in different ways, working in this hybrid model. And I think games are a great way to support that.
Yeah, thank you, Melvin. Well, actually, the flu B that you have developed, I think that is also something like that is required for this COVID also, because many people are reluctant to take this vaccination, and that's
Yeah,
not in India alone, across the world. So I think
yeah,
this kind of gamification can help a lot.
absolutely, absolutely. We just launched our COVID version of that in France last week, so
Oh, great.
it's there, it's moving.
All right. Thanks. So we'll instead of going next to Nibu John Thomas, we'll go to Dr. Varghese Pandulu, current director of Rajagiri Media, for his view on how this pedagogy can be integrated into gaming, digital.
Yeah, I thought of, am I audible? Am I audible enough?
Yes, yes.
So I thought of following Melvin well, because he introduced the theme of serious games. So I have developed a research program to gamify the STEM themes, to introduce the STEM themes to education through the gamifications. That's what I wanted to share here. I have published it as a paper in gamification of STEM themes to nurture engineering professional life skills. This appears in IEEE Education Society conference conducted in Spain in 2018. My insight is very simple, but I think it could be helping the game makers of the game very much. How to develop a serious game, for example, especially to develop a serious game to teach STEM themes. I'm a teacher in physics. I'm an engineer also in mechanical engineer, but I have to teach engineering physics to my students, and therefore I thought, how could I better teach my students these themes like oscillations, waves, interference, diffraction, polarization, acoustics. These are the things I'm supposed to teach the engineering students. So what I found in all this particular act of gamification is that if you could identify an action verb, which could be the action of this game as well as the action of this physical phenomena, so we could identify things like that, and then we could allow the children, allow the learners to really get involved, immersed in this particular action verb, which is related to this particular physical phenomena, which will be then allowing them to immerse into that and get a first-hand experience of how it looks like. And if that action verb becomes the theme of the platform of the gamification, I found that this particular physical phenomena will be understood by them in a better way, but in an interesting way, because gamification is done based on this action verb. I can give some examples. For example, when I taught oscillations, I thought of it as a swinging action. So the action will be a swing, as a person sits on a swing. So a swing and get it game. We plan to develop that kind of game. So you can imagine. I don't go to the details. You can read in my paper, gamification STEM themes to nurture engineering professional and life skills. It's a published paper, so you could read there. But what I mean basically is that if you could identify the core action verb which is associated with this particular phenomena, physical phenomena, and if you can make that as a theme of this particular game, there's no distraction. Basically, the children, the learners are getting into this phenomena itself when they are doing this particular game. For example, next chapter I had to engage was waves. So wave makers game. That's a game I had developed. So, making waves on a rock, how can we can play games like that, but then this is actual learning material which they have to study in the chapter waves, and then they do also gamification based on that. So the action verb is there, and then they get into this phenomena of waves, and they really understand the phenomena, the significance of the phenomena. There's no distraction happening. There's no kind of what's called all negative aspects of this game will not be there. Next, interference, for example, wave riding game was the game I suggested. Interference between two waves. So wave riding details I don't go to right now, but you can read it as I told you. Diffraction, for example, shoot it out game. Polarization is a difficult theme in physics, but you could make a bowman's game. For example, there will be two slits, and a arrow is shot, and it should pass through both these slits. So that is exactly what polarization will be doing in real physical scenario. So the children will, the learners will get a deeper experience of what it really means, the physical phenomena means, and then they can gamify. So it is not a distraction for them. It is getting into the action which is related to this phenomena, which becomes the action verb of this particular game. And as Srikumar has rightly mentioned, we are developing a entrepreneurial pedagogy. Entrepreneurial education we want to spread and to develop and spread all over the world. That's one of the intentions of this particular Rajagiri Media, to which I'm the director. And we planned a curriculum, a kind of pedagogy and a curriculum where it is driven by intrinsic motivation. And I am very happy to hear from Manu and all other panelists. This is very interesting. The gamification is interesting because it is one of the intrinsic motivation for learning. It gives a kind of intrinsic motivation. The learners learn by get through games. That is the reality. So if we can have a controlled games based on this kind of action verbs, and the gamification is in fact the fourth stage of this particular entrepreneurial learning event we have designed. So I'm very happy that the discussions happens over this theme of gamification. But I want to draw your attention, the game makers, if you could make games, if based on the action verb of the physical phenomena when it comes to teaching physics or chemistry or the STEM subjects, that could be a solution for avoiding the kind of distraction which can happen to the students when they're engaging with the games. So it will playfully allow them to immerse into the very action which is there for the physical phenomena. That's my submission.
Thank you, Dr. Varghese Pandalukaran. Actually, science and technology has so much possibilities for gamification. We are sure about it. So we'll quickly go to Nibu John Thomas, who is doing research in IIT Madras. So we have heard so many versions of how games can be used. Like there are serious games can be used for educational purposes. It can be impactful, as Melvin Bell has said. So what has been the research, the approach of the researchers? How do you view this, all this phenomena emerging?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. First of all, I love the concept of gamification, and because of that, being with people who work in the area of gamification is really exciting. Thanks a lot for this opportunity to Mr. Srikumar and Professor Manu. Thank you. Okay, so the topic given to me is approaches in the gamified learning. So yeah, I'll share my screen. Are you able to see that? Can you hear this?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'll broadly speak about two approaches to implement gamification in learning. So when I say two approaches, I'm referring to two broad ideologies that kind of guide the implementation of gamification in the learning context. So the first approach can be called as like a neo-centric approach. It's also known as the choice architecture model. Now, you can ignore the names or the jargons because it's just for our own clarity. So, but what is the essence of that is essentially important here. Now, in this ideology, in this approach, learners are considered as just rational individuals, and the games are considered as a system for a perfect system for getting a lot of information and easy incentivization. So that's how it is perceived. Now, okay, so as you already know, gamified learning will have a lot of game elements like coins, badges, levels, leaderboards, all those things. If it's serious games, then that's altogether different ideology. So this approaches, both approaches I'm referring to, can essentially be used or considered as approaches in gamified learning, and also for gamification in general for various methods. But technically, when it comes to the clarity, it may not be as perfectly fitting in for a serious games approach. It's slightly different. Okay. Yeah, coming back. So in this neo-scientific approach, so what it essentially offers is something like a game-like environment. So the visual appearance, all those aesthetics and all, essentially for the the millennials who love games and lived in the game fed area, as Professor Manu has pointed out. Now, so it is also of course, I mean, both is for the millennials, but here the game-like environment is one essential aspect. Second aspect is the non-monetary incentives it can provide, and also the data tracking or the nudging of individuals, nudging of learners through some of the cognitive biases that they have. I'm not going to the details, but so essentially that's the key focus there, and the learner experience may go for a toss. So there may not be a sense of gameplay in it. So the learner may experience a trainer-determined learning without much of autonomy or enjoyment and all. Okay. Now the problem with this would be some kind of counterintuitive consequences, or the ethical dilemmas involved in it. So this is essentially the one approach, which is basically rooted in the age-old scientific methods, and all, scientific management methods and all. Now, coming back to the other method, it's called the humanistic approach. Now, the humanistic approach is considering the individuals as inherently social and emotional beings who are interested in making meaning out of learning and also growth oriented. So that's the orientation, or that's the perception about learners, and it considers games as a system to create positive and meaningful experience. Okay. Now the key focus here is to create a gameplay, and positive affordances is the focus here. Now again, this also has potential problems. So there is an amount of unpredictability involved in it, because as we know, game and game design per se is an iterative process and has a lot of uncertainty involved in it. So essentially, creating this experience would be a little difficult. And this approach, this humanistic approach, has its roots in positive psychology per se. Now, the contrast and compare. I'm not going into details of that, of the contrast and compare here, because I don't know how much time I have. So I'll just give a few things. I do have a preference on the humanistic approach, but that doesn't mean that's the best thing or anything. Let it put it this way. This neo-scientific approach would be easier to be adopted and absorbed into a teaching system, because it's kind of the business as usual model. For that matter, neo-scientific can be approached, incorporated into almost any business kind of scenario, because again, it's business as usual. Whereas the second model, the humanistic model, is little uncertain, but it has a huge transformational potential. So I have an opinion here. I believe the neo-scientific can be better for instructor-led learning situations, and whereas if it's learner-centric learning systems, then humanistic can be better. Again, that is just my perception. So in summary, it is again your choice of what fits in well with you. So that's all I'm ending here. It was great talking, and I believe at least right now, the gamification world is, in India at least, it's a small world. So we will meet again and again in some places also, because as Deepu has pointed out, we were working together, and that time was really great, and we have learned together a lot of things. And I believe we will all come meet together, because everybody will have their own lot of insights to give. And thanks for this organizers for this wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nibu. Actually, you have put two important points for further discussion as we come to the next stage, because we need to get this in the pedagogy of schools and colleges. So you have come up with two approaches, and whether maybe some approach is good for people like Melvin Bell and this Oki Poki, Amita Agrawal, and maybe for schools they need a different approach. So I think you have put forward two important thoughts for us to ponder. So we'll quickly go to Nasir Kaihan, I think has left and he'll be joining. Nasir has come. Okay. Welcome back. And what we felt is that UNESCO has also given a lot of importance for gaming. That's what I understand. So would you like to tell us how UNESCO is taking up this forward in various countries, promoting gamification?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here among this diverse group of scholars, practitioners, researchers, and industry people, or colleagues, I would say, fellows. So we have heard a very different, very interesting perspective, and very diverse, actually, on gamifying the education sector from the lens of industry, from the lens of academia, from the lens of, as in the case of HR, from the lens of industry people. But then what multinational organizations such as UNESCO do when it comes to gamifying or gamification. In UNESCO, as you all might know, but I need to reiterate, we are bragging a lot about this. So UNESCO is a UN specialized agency focusing heavily on 3 areas: education, culture, and science. We have talked a lot about gamification in education, and I don't need to touch upon that a lot. But then UNESCO has been adapting gamifying the culture sector inside the organization. And a great example of that is the project Divertimento in Greece between 2014 and 2020. And that means gamification in the culture sector of UNESCO started in 2014 when UNESCO developed this mobile application called Ground Master Challenge. Ground Master Challenge, it was a mobile application that was developed to promote and facilitate tourism in the old city, in the medieval city of Rome in Greece. So that's where we stand in terms of gamifying our culture sector. And then it's all about gamification in a sense, and according to the definition, it's integrating certain elements of game into learning and development. So that's as for our culture sector. But then my own area that I currently work and focus under UNESCO in Kabul, Afghanistan, is the social and human sciences under the science sector, but then the umbrella of social and human sciences. So under the science sector, we use games, especially physical games and activities such as arts and sports to foster psychosocial development among youth, to add value in nation building and other democratic processes, and also to help with fostering a sense of peaceful coexistence and community cohesion among our beneficiaries. So my project that I myself I'm finding very interesting at this juncture here in Afghanistan is culture and sports for psychosocial development and fostering coexistence among Afghans that are mostly internally displaced populations, that are returnees that are coming from Pakistan and Iran, and then a third group that are their host communities. So with this project, we are really looking into fostering a sense of community cohesion among our beneficiaries from three different segments. And the project is currently very little with limited scope in 2 provinces in eastern and western Afghanistan. But then we are discussing with different other multinational organizations and donor agencies here in Afghanistan to see how could we expand and build upon these activities to implement such activities across Afghanistan for peace building purposes. For example, since the pact that was signed between the United States and the Taliban here in Afghanistan last February, since then, the Afghan government, part of that pact was for the Afghan government to release over 5,000 Taliban combatants from Afghan prisons. But then what happened to them? So they all went back to the battlefield because there were no mechanisms for reintegrating them. So seeing these physical activities and games from the lens of peace building, I can tell you that I see the potential of gamifying the peace process, and then engaging the ex-combatant and reintegrating them with the locals, with the non-combatants, through games, would reintegrate them rather than letting them go back to the battlefield. So we at UNESCO see this, the gamification from that lens. So it's basically again under the education sector through the civic education lens, but rather at the community level, and then maybe a non-formal lens of education. With that being said, I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I want to conclude it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasser Kahan, and actually that gives us hope, because even for peace among nations, we can use gamification. So that's very. So we'll quickly go to K. Thiago of Central University of Kerala. And now that you have heard different perspectives, and you are in the basically in the education sector, so we'd like to hear from you.
Sorry. Yes, now just. So thank you so much for providing a chance for me. So the topic which I assigned for me is gamifications, and particularly I'm talking about how the gaming pedagogy we can incorporate to the teaching practice as well as the teaching teacher education field. As all of you know the basic things about the gamification, just I'm skipping this introductory part. And this is a model is suggested by the Pozzi et al. And year 2016. According to them, there is a 4T model they suggested. So the first T is represent the task, because all the gaming is related to the task oriented or goal oriented. So when they assign any goal or any task, it should be a higher domain. That's called hard domain. I hope you already know the terms like hard domain as well as low domain. That's called higher order thinking. So when you assign any task, it will be filling the hard domains of the students. Then after the task assigned, we have to divide the teams. We have to divide the members into single member team or in a small group. Even if you look into a lot of tools like Kahoot or any tools which are related to the gamifications, lot of options they provide, whether we can play with a game in a single phase or in a team based and all. So like this, we can assign the task in a team based or in a single. Then finally, the third T is talking about technology. We should be selecting the appropriate technological tools, because in the market, in the online, you can find it more than thousands or lakhs of online tools are there, especially for the online. But as a teacher fraternity, we should be selecting the proper tool, which is the tools more appropriate in the case of the particular content. So even the Varghese father, he highlighted that some of the game is need for an hour, particularly for the teaching physics and all. So like this, as a teacher fraternity, we should be select the appropriate tool for the students' learning process. Then finally, we can move to the time. The time is represent already. The lot of people are already highlighting that, and the games we can go with the synchronous mode or as well as the asynchronous mode. So we have to plan whether we can organize such an event or such a task in a synchronous mode. I hope you already know that what is synchronous. It's a live. The teacher and student should be online. Both may interact or both may do some kind of interactive work. It's a synchronous mode, and parallelly as an asynchronous mode. So whenever you're designing any kind of gaming based pedagogy or gaming based things, you should consider the 4 T's. The task oriented, then we have to divide the team, then we can locate the proper technology tools, and finally we have to find whether we can go with the synchronous mode or in asynchronous mode. This is a pedagogical approach in the case of the gamification. And the next next pedagogy approach, this also is given by the Tula et al. In the year 2017. They focusing that they highlight that there is a 4 components is need for an hour for all the teachers, particularly the teacher education, even for all the teacher fraternity. Those are like to incorporate the pedagogical gamification as a pedagogy in our teaching learning process. We should what is that enrich the 4 pedagogical 4 components. The first one is called pedagogical. So what is a pedagogy? So as a teachers, we are already familiar with curriculum, basic planning, tutoring, and assessment, because the three important layers in the classroom practice, one is for teaching, learning, assessment. Already we are familiar, and we know that which is a pedagogical things more apt for this particular content delivery. The second component as a teacher, we should be enhance the technological knowledge. Particularly, we should select the appropriate tool, and finally, we must know how we can incorporate it for the content delivery. So this is much need in the case of the teachers. This is the second domain is a technology. The third domain is a collaborative in the case of gaming, because some of the teachers already, they are good in the content, but they could not know how we can assign the task in a collaborative way. Because a lot of, if you look onto the some of the websites, they given a lot of collaborative practice like think, pair, share, or a jigsaw model. A lot of models are there. We should be locate which models more appropriate for this particular content delivery, particularly in the technology. Because even if you look onto the Google apps itself, a lot of collaborative tools are available, like Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides and all. But we are not using effectively. So when you're assigning any task, we should properly select the proper technology tools, and parallelly we must know how we can use the tools in a collaborative way. And finally, the teacher should having the creativity component also, because normally we are incorporating any methods as a what is the tryout only. When you do any tryout, we can find some of the positive aspects, some of the negative aspects. Then we find any negative aspect, we should be know how to revamp that particular tryouts. So that is called, we must know or we may get some kind of ability to explore or improvise the methods which are incorporating. Therefore, the four domain is need for an hour while incorporating the gamification in our classroom practice. Just I'm showing the same thing with the other picture representation. See here, you can easy to understand in where the three domains are. So the four domains are incorporating. One is called pedagogical. So in the case of pedagogical, planning, teaching, learning, and assessment is already there. And see, just so in this case, the pedagogical domain, the curriculum planning, it comes to the orientation phase, and the creations, it may comes to the creation and play area, the tutoring of the pedagogical domains to be involved, and the elaboration, that is called the finally the reflective practice, that is come to the assessment. Therefore, the three pedagogical domains of the curriculum-based learning, tutoring, as well as the assessment may lies on the four domains like orientation, creation, play, elaboration. Now, if you come to the second domain, it's a technological area. We must use the technology area particularly for analyzing the particular games as well as the technology tools in the orientation, the creation stage. So while incorporating, while using the tool itself, we can easy to find the which are the obstacles we are facing during the incorporation stage. Then we can overcoming that kind of obstacles. This is a technological area because of the gamification. The third layer is the collaborative. So here it may start from the planning, it may end with assessment. See, the planning and assessment, the entire stage, the collaborative areas to be merged, like sharing and co-development within the school, and parallelly we can think about the networking collaboration. If you come to the last domain as a creative area, it lies on the orientation, creation, play area up to the teaching, learning. But in the case of the assessment, the final, normally the every teaching, learning, it may fulfill the self-development only. So it may satisfy the final self-development. So this model is suggested by the Tula et al. It's a great model. When even some people is not knowing much about the gamification, if they know, if you understood, sorry, if you can see this particular model, they can easy to locate and they can lead further. And this way we can add the gamification in our classroom practice. Even you can incorporate the curriculum practice also. First, we have to determine the characteristics of the people, the learner characteristics. This is the first stage. For any kind of methods we're going to incorporate, we must know the learner's characteristics. The second one, we should be locating the learning objectives. Then third, we have to develop some of the gaming content with their activities. So in the gaming content and activities, I'm giving some kind of domains like multiple performance, that content should be satisfying the feasibility, increase difficulty level, multiple paths. These all things should be satisfying. Finally, when you're going to incorporating, we should add some kind of masalas, like adding some kind of gaming elements and mechanisms in the pedagogical practice itself. This is a strategy we can use it in the case of the gamification in the classroom. Even it may satisfy both in the higher education as well as school level. So normally the teaching is the reaching. So when the teaching is to be satisfied in the sense, the content is to be reached. So for this, we have to depend on the some of the gamification only. And whenever you're thinking about the gamifications, already a lot of people have highlighted in what way the psychologists may incorporate into the gamification features. So we must consider the psychological aspects, like the behavioral aspect of the student. Only we have to think about the 25% of technology aspects. And finally, just another word of learning. Just I'm going to throw some of the tools name which I'm regularly using for my classroom practice. These are the tools related to gamifications. One is called Blocket. This is a game consists of the avatar and lot of layers are involved. Particularly, this is a tool for classroom engagement purpose they developed, and I'm using for the free only. And the next tool is the ClassDoors. It's like a LMS platform. This also helping to do any kind of engagement activity in the classrooms. Next is a Nearport. This is another important interactive way. Next is a CUSAT. This is an assessment purpose, but we can use this kind of tool even for the formative assessment, summative assessment, during whenever you think about the gamification, you can incorporate at any assessment stage. And Poll Everywhere. These are some of the polling tools: Socrative, Gymkit, and Book Widgets, and Classcraft, and Kahoot. Most of the people are already familiar with this tool. Then Meeting Pulse and WebEx, or a Slido or Quizzes. So this much of tools are there. But parallelly, in the higher education, particularly in the teacher education, we are using the Moodle. But the Moodle platform automatically having this kind of gamification features are already involved in this. One is called User Pictures Avatar, visibility of the student progress. Even any MOOC course when you're doing, we can easily to find the student progress and display the Q results immediately, like immediate feedback. Then levels of the peoples, like a leaderboard, we can easily to find. Then feedback, immediately we may get it. Even some of the what is that school RJ Blackboard, from this a lot of badges systems they incorporated. So therefore automatically the Moodle platform, even the higher education or in the school level, if you are incorporating, it may satisfy all the gaming layers. So in this I may stop my presentations. Thank you all.
Kumar is mute.
Talked about the synchronous and asynchronous mode, and there are so many areas that we need to look at before we can actually talk of implementing gamification in a bigger way in our schools. So we'll quickly go to Rahul P. Balachandran of Finger Robotics, and we'll hear from him the industry view, how they can integrate with the education system to bring about better gamification tools for learning.
Hi. Thank you, Sri Kumar. So we have seen many eminent panelists are presenting very detailedly, like Manu and other people. So I think I just revamped my presentation while I was listening to this, because I don't have beyond that anything to present, right? So I will share my screen. I hope it's visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes. As introduced, I'm Rahul Balachandran, CEO of Chief Product Officer of Inco Robotics. So we are a robotic company. So we are recently came into this field. Before that, we were doing manufacturing robots and teaching AI, teaching robotics. As Varghese Pandalukkaran told, we are into STEM education. We are into serious robotic education and all. So then we thought we need to think about this gamification, and we are including these aspects in our curriculum or in our way of delivering things. So I'm a father of 2 kids. So most of the parents are will be familiar with this word, boring. So all our children, whenever I ask them to study, after some time they will get bored. If I ask them to do some activity, after some time they will get bored. I don't know, after pandemic it's getting more and more evident. Like before pandemic, my eldest son, he used to read these series like Harry Potter and all. He finished in few months, but now they are not at all reading. They all are into these kind of things. They are happy. when they are playing. They are only happy when they are doing this kind of activity. So I'm not sure one panelist was saying that this is an addiction. Yeah, but we can use these things wisely. That's why we are doing this activity, right? So how we can do this? So game characteristics in academic context, that's the solution, I think. So that's the only solution we can do. I'm not telling that's the only solution, that there will be much more, but yeah, this is a better way to do this, to attract these children by, I think, yeah, I'm not going into these things. So academia and industry, like we know this, the gaming industry and academician has to join hands in hand, and then the scenarios will change. So two ways are there. Like I have seen one question, how we can do this gamification. Like what the one way is structural gamification, then the other way is content gamification. So these are the methods we can adopt when we inculcate gamification in our pedagogy or academia. So we are people who's doing robotics and other technologies studies using, so we are using gamification to teach robotics and futuristic technologies. As when Verghese Pandalukaran was saying that, I was amazing, like this is what exactly we are doing, sir, right? We are doing research for last 1 year. We are working on this, how to teach robotics and AI using gamification. So we are not only focusing on the online thing. So right now we are seeing many online platforms. It's only online. So I'm also fed up with my kids. They're always doing, they're studying in the online, then they're working online, they're doing activities in online. So I want them to, I want to distract from the online to physical thing. So we have physical elements in our program. So we call it digital. So where we have a kit will deliver to each and every child. Then we have a digital platform where the contents are gamified. We deliver this content gamified version. And the best part is that the physical component are connected with the digital component. It's not like you just see or you just watch the videos or do activities online, then you do your activities on your hardware. It's not like that. Whenever you are working on your hardware, that's how you're controlling your avatar or your robots on the screen. That's how it happens. I will tell you a story. Like, so just assume that a robot is moving in the screen, and suddenly the power went off. So the robot from the screen, TV screen, will tell the student that now you need to help me. You have your hardware in your hand. You have to assemble, you have to take the battery, you have to take a switch, you have to take a LED. Now do the connection properly. When the kid do these things properly, and when he switch on the light, at the same time the robot in the TV gets the light. And this is the way we are connecting the hardware thing and the digital thing. So we think not all, we have to provide these kind of things. If else we will fail. Like activities, we have to do things. We have to teach them by doing. No, so we as a father of 2 children, I'm very much scared of the situation. That's how we are bringing up with these kind of gamification. And even in the kids and all, we are doing gamification. Like here we are providing stories, then the kids has to unbox, then find numbers or codes, then they have to enter these things in the screen, then only they will get connected to these kind of things. So the other things are easy. So we are focusing on the hardware and software integration, and how we can bring, as Verghese sir was saying, we are bringing, if a spring, we are just holding a spring and we are doing something like that, then it should show on the screen. So this is what you are doing. This is how it's not only digital. Like we are building these kind of robots. All these things they have to assemble and see on the TV. That's what we are doing. And yeah, thank you.
You're mute.
Okay, that phygital concept that you talked about, actually we discussed that in the previous roundtable, and I think you should have been there in that event also. So that was great.
Yeah.
So there's one question I think Manu can answer, how gamification can be implemented in economics and management. Is there some... Manu is there? Okay, so we'll come to the next agenda, that is preparing a roadmap. Now we have different scenarios now presented before us, and there is always a positive aspect to this. So Manu has come back.
Yeah.
Manu, there's a question on how to implement gamification in economics and management. Do you want to give a brief answer on that? Is there anything already done on that?
Sure. Actually, when you talk about gamification in economics and management, you have to think about the kind of input or the experience that the students should get. So the students, instead of just having an understanding about the concepts, what if, for example, if it is in the case of economics, if there are many games that teach entrepreneurship. So if you may be knowing the basic fundamentals of entrepreneurship, how to start a business, but there are many games that really give you a real world experience of how to be an entrepreneur, how to start a business, how to invest, and how to attract investments, and how to make calculated risk, and what are the decisions that you have to take. So these are all the many different aspects that are already integrated. So it is not just about theoretical knowledge, it is about applying it. And when you think about the Bloom's taxonomy, you are taking it beyond the remembering and understanding, and you are taking it to analyzing, applying, and much more. So there are many different games related to management, related to leadership. Pacific is a leadership game where you can learn many different aspects of leadership by playing a full-fledged serious game. So if I go by numbers, then there are a lot of games in many different domains, not just management and economics, but many other domains wherein you can learn the concepts by just doing it.
Okay. So thank you, Manu. Yeah. Actually, we come to the end of this program, but we like to have comments from all the panelists, because how can we go ahead, how to prepare a roadmap? Because now we have understood that there is so much potential, so much inherent in gaming that can be added in and integrated into education at different levels. So those examples we have seen, and different approaches like Nibu has already shown. There can be different approaches to implementing this. So this can be confusing for a policymaker, how to actually come up with a solution which won't hurt somebody, or which is suitable for someone, and which doesn't harm anyone. So these are all concerns which everybody will be having, and the policymaker will be confused if he sees all these things. But if there is a roadmap that we can prepare about how to go about implementing this. So I would like each one of the panelists to give some brief comments on this, and before the concluding. Asha, would you like to start off?
Definitely, sir. Sorry, I'm having a cold. That's why there is trouble in my voice as well. So the thing is, as you said it for sure, you have so much of approaches being discussed, so much of ideas being shared. So when it comes to implementation part, it's not that easy. So it's like my experiences, I am into gamified learning. So I can share how I could have gamified a session. Like what I always keep in mind is that don't do gamification just for the sake of doing it. It's like somehow you have to go up as per the trend. So it's not a good choice. So initially you should have an idea regarding what is your learning objective. Now what you are going to if it's economics or whether it be management, what is the learning objective, that will be the first part. Then second is that every research has always pointed out that you have to check in detail about the learners. That is the psychology part. You should be having an idea about the type of learners. You have different type of learners. Not every learner enjoy this kind of. So it is up to their personality, the ease of use of technology from the part of learners, whether they are comfortable. So all those learner part. Then the third thing is there should be a storyline. Altogether there should be a storyline that should be brought into, and you should create a mission, or you should create that epic meaning thing you have to get now. So you will have to go for a storyline. Then you have to keep in mind you should not compromise either the fun or the content. Somewhere you will have to balance too. So I think from the part of the policy maker, what they have to see will be how you're going to balance the learning content as well as the fun part. So a proper balance is needed. Too much of fun, no content, it's bad. Too much of content, low fun, that's bad. So a proper balance. That is what my suggestion is.
Dr. Tiago, would you like to compliment?
Maybe I just want
Yes, yes.
another direction I want to take the discussion. We are thinking of making games for the children and allowing them to engage in the game. I would put the horse back. I mean, the learner should be also making games. Not that playing the games. If they have a theme, that's the right way of approaching these things. If you look at children, they will make a game. Whenever they are free, they make a game on their own. That's the learning process. Very initial stages of our learning, it was like that. They don't need great things to make a game. Small children, they are together and they discover a game. This discovery of games is something which is very, very important. I think that is heart of gamification. I should say, because we think about making games for the children, but rather we should also facilitate children to make games on their own topics, so that it will be also real fun for them, and they can also give this game for others and call others to join them to play this game. That's a great experience. That's an entrepreneurial experience for them. Otherwise, they are only making use of the games which is made by somebody else. Rather, I would say the learner should be also making games which attract others. That will be a kind of great breakthrough in the gamification idea.
Dr. Tiago, would you like to?
Yes, sir. Yes. So here the attitude is a matter, so for everything. If you want to make it any policy decisions, the attitude of the parents should be changed. They can have positive notion about the technology integration of the what is that, the classroom practices, because now the parents are very much worrying about the overdosage of the screening time. So what we have to do, we have to think about, we have to disseminate some kind of positive awareness. Lot of, particularly we have to start with the primary schools, then after that we can go to the higher level and all. First we have to give some kind of awareness about some of the good tools in a free base. I'm not talking about the paid versions. From this they can understand the positive aspects. Similarly, we can give some kind of awareness program to the teacher side also, because the basic changes may happen to the teacher side as well as the parent side. Then only this kind of big kind of changes may happen to the entire education sector. Otherwise, not be changed. That's why I told the terms attitude. And parallelly, we have to consider on the policy makers also, because still they have some kind of concrete way of understanding about the education system. We have to highlight that which are the good features in the case of gamification. If we are incorporating in what way it may be beneficial to the learner's perspective, that we have to emphasize to the policy makers, then only they can implement. Otherwise, just they kept in somewhere. And one more thing, whenever we're preparing any kind of gamification based activity, we must consider the content, because lot of tools are there. But the problem with the tools which I'm crossing, most of the tools is much focused on the entertainment layer. Entertainment is only the partial, but we must consider on the content delivery, because like all the games which you look onto that, everything is focusing on the gaming layer, like avatars, then leaderboard. It's okay, but the main focusing in the case of content. Otherwise, the content aspects to be zero, then nothing is to be fruitful to the students' perspectives. So that's why I request whenever we are designing, kindly think about the content as one. That's why I told the psychology, the content and pedagogy as well the technology should be blend together. Then it's like a synchronous mode. Then only it should be perfect. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Thiago. And Manu, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, so I think that we have to educate our teachers and the system about what gamification is through a game thinking paradigm. Because many a time teachers think that having games or having fun will dilute the entire educational process. So teachers, they are not much a time comfortable with the gameful environment. But if we can educate them about the different dimensions of fun. For example, if you look into Nicole Lacero's 4 types of fun, most of us associate fun with easy fun. That is a lot of exploration, a lot of noise in the learning environment. What about hard fun? That is giving a challenge, problem solving. That is also fun. The basic aspect of gamification is solving a challenge, doing hard things. And what about people fun? Competing, collaborating, that's also fun. And the serious fun, that is creating something meaningful to the world and to the society. So I think, as rightly said by Dr. Thiago, it is about giving a meaningful experience. Whatever they do, rather than the entertainment level, we should have a in-depth perspective of what is fun, what is game. So just that, rather than the superficial aspect, if all the educators are completely aware about the different layers of fun, then rather than just adding points, badges, and leaderboards, we can make it very, very innate, very, very deep, very, very meaningful. And if we are successful in that, then obviously all the educators, without any nudging, they will voluntarily take games into their classrooms, because once we have experienced the value and the meaning that we can create through games, then it is something which is unparalleled. So that is what I had to contribute.
So that's great. 4 levels of fun. So I think so much awareness has to be developed. Maybe a roadshow is required to go to the schools and colleges. And Rahul, would you like to comment on that? Rahul?
Hi, sorry, I was mute. So I have 5 points. So we have very, very eminent people like Manu and Thiago, those who can contribute to this thing. But what we lack is, I think, an ecosystem. So we have to create an ecosystem. First, we have to create an ecosystem. Then we have to, then for that, we have to identify the stakeholders. We are talking about teachers, we are talking about students, we are talking about parents, then policy makers, then there will be other people like the game developers or the companies like us. All together only we can create these things. So we have to create an ecosystem, or for that we have to identify the real stakeholders of that ecosystem. Then the third thing, I would say, awareness. We need to create real awareness, as Dr. Thiago told. Then the industry academia collaboration. Once we identify these things that can be easily done, like everyone, like companies like us and the schools, they need this. So and the policy makers, of course, we can educate them, being creating awareness and all that, we can do that. Then visibility also, as Manu was saying, that that's essential, road shows or anything. So this is another example, like we are conducting these things. So visibility also have to be there. So these are the 5 points I have. Thank you. You're muted, Sri Kumar sir.
So Manju, Mary Cherian has noted in the chat that she's using gamification as an assignment tool. Okay. Would you like to talk about it? Brief assignment tool.
Assessment tool. She has
assessment.
Assessment tool. Okay. Would you like to talk about it? Or?
Sir,
Yes.
good evening all.
Yes.
I am audible.
Yes, yes.
Can I talk Malayalam?
Yes, yes.
We have to translate.
Yeah, we'll have to translate, no problem.
ഞാൻ LP സെക്ഷനിലാണ് പഠിപ്പിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പം ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ഒരു ക്ലാസ് കഴിഞ്ഞു കഴിയുമ്പം അവർക്ക് അസസ്മെന്റ് പോലെ, അതായത് ഞാൻ പഠിപ്പിച്ച കാര്യം അവർക്ക് മനസ്സിലായോ എന്ന് അറിയാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഈ ഗെയിമിനകത്തൂടെയാണ് ഞാൻ അവരെ അസസ് ചെയ്യാറുള്ളത്. അവർ ശരിക്കും അത് മനസ്സിലാക്കാത്ത കുട്ടികൾ പോലും പിന്നെ കുറച്ച് ടൈം കൊടുക്കും. ഞാൻ ചിലപ്പോൾ രാത്രി 10 മണി വരെ ഞാൻ ടൈം ഇടാറുണ്ട് ഇത് കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് അയക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. അപ്പം അറിയാൻ മേലാത്ത കുട്ടികൾ ആ പഠിച്ച കാര്യം ഒന്നുകൂടി ആവർത്തിച്ച് പഠിച്ചതിന് ശേഷം അവർ ഗെയിം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് ആഗ്രഹിക്കാറുണ്ട്. കാരണം ഗെയിം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നമ്മളൊരു ടെസ്റ്റ് പേപ്പർ ഇടുന്നതിനേക്കാളും കൂടുതലായിട്ട് ഗെയിം എന്നുള്ള ഒരു നെയിമിങ്ങോട് കൂടി തന്നെ അവരുടെ അടുത്തേക്ക് നമ്മൾ ഈ കാര്യം എത്തിക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേന് അവർക്ക് കുറച്ചും കൂടെ കൂടുതൽ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ആണ് അത് കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് അയക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട്. അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഫീലിംഗ് എനിക്ക് ഈ ഒരു വർഷം തൊട്ടാണ് ഞാൻ ഇത് ചെയ്യാൻ തുടങ്ങിയത്. എനിക്ക് നന്നായിട്ട് ഫീൽ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് അത്.
സ്വന്തമായിട്ട് ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്ത ടൂളാണോ?
വേർഡ് വാള്, ബാംബൂസിൽ അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ തുടങ്ങിയിട്ടുള്ള ടൂളുകളാണ് ഞാൻ ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്.
Thanks, Manju. What she said is that she's teaching in the LP school and she's doing gamification for the assessment part. So that makes it very interesting for the students to take part. That's what she said. So any other views on? We are running. I mean, already overshot time. So any other views? Nibu, would you like to comment on how this can be taken forward, this gamification in education?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I also have, only some thoughts to consolidate on what others have said. We have this idea of gamification or including games even like 20-30 years back also. So it was technically called as this edutainment industry. So Professor Asha rightly pointed out, what happened there was some of these tools which was developed was really fun, and some of it was developed was effective in teaching, but that blend of balance was lost, and that industry has, that ideology has completely gone away. But gamification and emerged really powerful. But the problem right now is, many of you would definitely be knowing that almost for anything and everything people started calling now gamification, because it's a very in word and it's a stylish word. For anything and everything they started calling gamification is a dangerous thing, because in 2018 one top technology firm, Gartner, has technically predicted, they have stated a term that by 2020 80% of the gamification applications that is implemented in the globe will be a huge failure. I don't know what was the evaluation of that, but probably there would be many failures, but nobody will notify and publicize the failures. So what they were essentially pointing out was the problem of design quality. So as Dr. Manu has pointed out, when we start gamification, we actually have to think of why we are doing it, and that objective has to be very clear. So there is two terms called instrumental outcome and experiential outcome in gamification. So if you are implementing gamification for learning, the instrumental outcome is learning, and there is this experiential outcome that kind of is about the gameful experience and all. So by definition, gamification aims to create both. So if one of it is created, then technically we cannot call it as gamification. For example, I have implemented something and people have learned a lot. Okay, I have used game elements, but technically I cannot call it as gamification because it has not created that experience, and vice versa. If the experience was not there, but people have not learned anything, then it is again not gamification. So these two balances the essence of it, and that's it. That's my thought. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, you're muted.
Question regarding experiential learning and gamified learning, whether experiential is better. I think there is some overlap there, isn't it? Would Manu and Nibu, would you like to?
Yeah, when we talk about, for example, an immersive games are said to be giving you an immersive learning experience. And there are 4 things for an immersive learning experience. First is that experience should grab the attention of the audience. And obviously that is what happens in a game. And second, in games, we learn by doing. Most of the games, they don't give you a manual. You learn the rules of the game by doing or playing the game. And third, it is about informal learning. Most of the learnings that we had, the best learnings that we had in our life was in an informal setting. And fourth, and the most important thing, it is repetition. In a game, you may have to do the same activity. In Candy Crush, you may have to do the gem matching activity maybe 100 or 1,000 times, but we enjoy it. And repetition is the key to learning. So all the many aspects of experiential learning is integrated into a gameful learning. So whatever we call it, at the end of the day, the objective is that we should learn. And learning means a permanent behavioral change. So as rightly said by most of the panelists, the intention behind the entire process is very important. Because whether we call it gamification, game-based learning, gameful experience, the intention is that the learner should learn and the outcome should be there. But I believe that games are something that has driven the mankind for tens of thousands of years. And recently, 10 years ago, we call something called gamification. So that is not the history. It is associated with us for so long. So it is here to stay. And how effectively we use it and take it further, that we have to, that is something that we have to look forward to.
Yeah, if I may add, yeah. Okay, so I think I'm just going to say what Dr. Manu has said in another word. So, just an thought process. So, when we say about experiential learning versus gamification, technically these are two different things. And this idea of experiential learning comes from David Cobb in like 1969, I believe. But this was a fundamental transformation in the whole ideology of learning itself. It technically means you experience something and then reflect upon that, and then conceptualize based on that by thinking, and then experiment on it, again experience. So it's a cycle. So this was suggested by a great researcher, but the funny part was how to do that was always a question. Now I believe probably gamification is technically a method of giving excitement and positive affordances is actually a solution to that question. So how experiential learning can be achieved? We would probably say by gamification. So, or I'm not saying experiential learning can only be achieved through gamification. There are a lot of methods. For example, you touch a fire and you realize that, yeah, that's dangerous. Again, it's experiential learning, but can everything be learned that way? May not be possible. So gamification actually gives a easier alternate path for that experiential learning. So that's it. So experiential learning can be enabled further by gamification. Thank you.
That's the clarification for the question that was raised, I think. So that confusion is now gone. So Tiago, would you like to give any final comments before we close? So how to finally take this forward? Because you are in the education, basically in the education sector. You're you're teaching the teachers. You're teaching the trainers.
Of course, sir, because while delivering the lecture in some programs, even some teachers not familiar with how to use the Google Meet and Zoom. then while talking about the gamification, they think it's a big things. Okay, so we have to disseminate this kind of awareness program in a very in a continuous access, continuous series. And one more thing, every practice should be a consistency, because normally once you using the Google Meet, now I fed up with the Google Meet because we are using more than 1 year. Now I'm fed up with Zoom also, because while using the same tool, the people may worry about the like some kind of laziness may comes. So we should incorporate to the different activities in different level. Otherwise, even the after 1 year or 2 years, the gamification may be older one. The people won't be follow later. So each time we should be incorporate some kind of novel things in the gamification. Then only lead further. Otherwise, only the 2 year practice it may be gamification. After this, once the new things may come, the people may shift there. So we have to incorporate the novel practices gradually one by one. If you are using the same methodology for more than 1 week, the people feel boring. The same tactics while preparing any kind of gamification things, we should be concentrating on the different layers, how we can incorporate gradually. And every gamification layers we should be emphasized at what is that any all the classroom transition. That also we have to focus. The terms which I'm focusing here, consistency. The consistent way of integration, the consistent way of people to be actively participation is to be much needed while incorporating the gamification strategy. Thank you.
So Melvin Bell is also there. Would you like to? Yes. By way of final comments, do you have anything to suggest how we can?
Yeah, I think what everyone else has said before is quite important. I think it's evolution and not necessarily revolution. I think that ingraining this into educational practice is about adding it to your already existing tool sets of things you do, rather than trying to say you're throwing everything out and this is coming in. You know, when we invented the keyboard, we didn't stop using the pencil. And of course now the pencil's become a stylus that we can write on our iPads. So I think it's about adding and complementing and giving an additional tool that can help do something additive, and not create it as being something where it's a revolutionary change. Everything you learned before is gone and there's a new paradigm world coming forward. I think that's where the fear comes. I think it's about finding areas where we can build this in, solidify it, and then just like the stylus evolving from the pen, it will generate new ideas, new innovation, and new ways of working.
Some noise. Okay. So thank you, Melvin Bell. Actually, we have overshot the time by 45 minutes, except for the first beginning 10 minutes. So even then, we are all here. So we have to conclude anyway. So there is a huge opportunity lying before us. We have the technology, we have the skills, and we have the knowledge and everything required to take this forward. But now the problem is how to integrate all these into a system, ecosystem where this becomes acceptable to all, especially that all the important stakeholders. I think that is the challenge that we need to take, and this, I think, this forum has been able to come out with that initiative to discuss the positive aspects, and of course the negative aspects are there. But Mark Griffiths has gone. So that is also a very important issue: how to identify whether a child has gone beyond the limits and gone into. Yes, Dr. Varghese.
I should also tell that Manu is going to start a series of articles in our education magazine, Pallikudam, from this coming issue. So that could be again a consolidating point, where we could consolidate our ideas. You can all contribute. I hope Melvin will act as a catalyst for this kind of synergy.
Yes.
Melvin, Manu?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this meeting itself is a right launch pad, because all the like-minded people who really believe in the power of games coming together itself is something phenomenal.
Yeah, so actually there are so many aspects thrown up and which requires further study. Nibu also raised so many issues. Each of the panelists raised so many issues that we need to further develop and also ponder over. I think that's a good starting point that we have made, and we have already overshot 40 minutes. So we'll conclude here, and maybe we also have a weekly event also now we have started, and where all the experts can directly interact and maybe show a 1 hour presentation. We have already started that process last week, where we tried to introduce 2 important companies which are providing this online learning in a much easier manner. So we'll have that with the gamification and robotics as well. So that will, I think, create better awareness among teachers, where we have a focused 1 hour program and with the Q&A. So we'll take this concept forward, and thank you all for making this event a great one. So once again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.